Good morning. My name is Trinette Hackett, and my uncle here helping me out is Roland Takaoka. This is Stomping on Eggshells, and this segment right here, first of all, why I'm doing it, why I'm still doing it. I know that probably pops up in people's minds whether you're for or against this broadcast. I keep seeing so many other people that I know or that I don't know exhibiting very similar signs. And it makes me very angry to realize that so many people don't even realize why they're doing it. It's just really easy to say, oh, women are crazy. And maybe we are. But if 1/4 or 1/3 of the population is coming forward saying this happened to me, and that can't be the total amount of people it's happening to, that means that there's a greater percentage of people who don't even realize that therapy can help, talking can help. There are reasons why they do this. And that ticks me off. That ticks me off that it's just easy to write these people off as that they're nuts. For years, I just assumed I was nuts. So I'm trying to reach out to as many people so that maybe they can look at it from a different perspective. That, not saying that this behavior is acceptable, but maybe this is something that you need to take a deeper look at. Don't take the abuse from this person, but realize there's a reason why it's there. And a couple things that I want to remember to talk about is from last week, it's how to help your child if you believe that they may have been abused by someone, and the steps and some of the things to watch out for. I'm going to go into from 13 to about 17, 18, about from a child's viewpoint or a teenager's viewpoint, and how I was seeing life and relationships and interactions. And also I need to flip over and explain how my mom and my family saw these interactions and how I handled or didn't handle them very well. I'm going to talk about basically you feel like you're in a free fall with a loss of control, loss of reality. I began to have very distinct behaviors that would separate with different friends, with different parts of the family. And I didn't understand boundaries. I would let everything happen to me until I would just slam down the wall. And it was usually in such a psychotic way, no one knew what to do with me at that point. So that was a big deal, is that I wasn't aware that I could set up boundaries. I was a child. I wasn't aware that I could do that. That's for grown-ups to do. And from the loss of boundaries when I was younger, that made it even more difficult, because you grow up thinking you don't have a right to tell people to stop. And because kids in high school are jerks, just telling them to stop isn't enough. I actually resorted to violence in some cases. Basically that's kind of what I'm trying to incorporate in this. It's going to be a little more rambling, because this was a very tumultuous time for me, and it was a lot of rage. And basically, I don't know. Roland, I'm kind of floundering here for a second. I'm not gonna lie.
That's okay. It's just a confusion of the feed coming from your brain and from your memories. You already know what went on. You already know how you analyze your whole thing, and you're processing the feelings now. Every day that you evolve, you process these feelings, and they're going to look differently every day. So as you re-examine, more and more is going to come out, and you're going to find better ways to express what it is you were trying to express. And we're becoming educated in the process too. I mean, like the whole concept today of parents don't know what they don't know, and they tend to assume an awful lot. And they say, well, just because they don't abuse their own kids does not mean that an aunt or an uncle or a relative or a friend isn't doing it for them. I mean, not for them, but you know what I mean. So it's definitely something to be examined by the parents, and we have our job too. It's not just to be who we ideally want to represent to our kids, but it's like protect them in the environment. And I know that everyone wants to do that, but we can't be over vigilant or over aware of what's going on. And I think that that's something that's very important to stress today.
I agree. One of the things I wanted to say up front is the hardest part right now for me to express is just because this is out there and this is pandemic, this does not mean that every grown-up is a child molester. I'm not trying to say that. The hard part is, the hard part is that it's very hard as a parent to protect your child from this, because it usually is someone you trust. And if you trust them, the child either trusts them or believes that they ought to trust them. So, we talked about it last week. It's like, ask the hard question. It's hard. It's hard because usually you want to go as a couple or as a group to ask the kid, which is very intimidating. And what if the other person with you, I'm not trying to point fingers, I'm not saying necessarily is the case, what if that other person is the problem? Like there were times that my mom and dad would sit me down. It's just like, what is going on? It's like, I can't talk about it. I can't. This is not a situation where I have the ability to speak out about this. And I still thought that it was my fault anyway. So I didn't want to complain about it, because then it was going to get worse in my mind. So asking sometimes is very hard because it's an uncomfortable talk. It's like, did anyone touch you here or here? And then you have to let them know. It's like, well, sometimes nurses and doctors have to touch you there. But that doesn't mean that other people can play doctor with you, And several kids have experimented with playing doctor or showing each other their parts because they're curious as children. So that creates a feeling of guilt and shame. And they may not want to even talk about that because they'll think they'll get in trouble. And it's difficult because it's like, if you actually believe your child is exhibiting signs, and they have a lot of signs of, hygiene, lack of interest in what they usually have, depression, anger, acting out, which could be just normal growth behavior. It also could be indicative of what we're talking about today. If you think that your child might have gone through something like this, call the school, call whatever, have them find an advocate or someone licensed and used to dealing with this. Someone that is not associated with your family. Okay, I'm not saying that all ministers and priests and deacons out there are evil. I'm not saying that. On the off chance that they are involved with that church or involved with a part of the family, you don't want to send them to the very person that they need to talk about. And it's kind of hard and it's kind of scary, but the school can actually help you find either a free or very cost-effective person to talk to them. And the kids may not want to talk to a complete stranger, but in a lot of ways it's easier to talk to a stranger than someone you're going to see at dinner sometime, or see at church, or have them come over to your house, or they go over to your house. It's actually easier because you're not waiting for the judgment to fall. You're not expecting them to go and talk to your parents. Because as a kid, if you ever messed up, who'd they talk to? They called your parents. They talked to them, and then everyone knew what you had done. So the stranger in that official capacity is actually the safest bet. In addition, if you really believe this might be happening, I'm not saying keep it a secret, but maybe avoid mentioning it until after they go or the day they go, because if that person is a close part of your family, God forbid, okay, I hope it never happens to you. I hope it never happens to your kids or anything. If you think it's happening, you don't want to give that predator time to reach your child. That's a very scary thing. What if they say, well, this is how it really happened. This was a mistake. This was an accident. It was actually your fault. Don't you dare tell. Or they'll take you away and you won't see your parents again. Who knows what might be, what kind of conversation they might have. And again, this doesn't mean that anyone in your family necessarily is hurting your kid. But if, parent intuition, if your kid is not acting, I don't want to say normal, I don't want to say right. If your kid is acting off, you just know. And maybe it's just teenage angst, or maybe it's something else. And this type of rage that I'm going to describe, let me just tell you, this is not normal. It's not normal to be pissed off at the entire world, and it's not healthy, and it definitely spirals you into very, very bad decisions. And if you start feeling more and more like you're alone, your decision ratio of good versus bad plummets completely, because you think you have no one and you think that nobody cares about you, even if they're screaming that they care about you. It's very hard to pull away from without help. my mother was extremely supportive, and she would have moved heaven and earth to try to figure out how to help me. She reached out to everyone she knew how, family, friends, therapists, doctors, everyone she could. And because only one or two memories I was able to recall at that point, it didn't fit with the level of anger and fear and all this inside of me. It didn't add up. And she wasn't quite sure what to do about that. And like I said before, back in the 80s and 90s, therapy was all about reconciling the family. So I'd go into therapy, and the first few therapists were like, well, why are you behaving this way to your mother? And I would just get so angry. It's like, it's not about her. This is what's going on in my head. It's not fair. It's not real. This is not supposed to happen in real life. This is a bad movie. It's a bad dream. It's a nightmare. This is not real. Right before my 13th birthday, I know I was spiraling out of control, but we had a family sit down, and my dad had told us, my brother was at the table, I was at the table, my mom was standing, my dad was in the half wall by the spindles, and he goes, basically, your mother doesn't want to be married to me anymore. And my reaction was very odd for a child. I was happy. I was like, oh, okay, that's it. Okay, so you're getting a divorce. And when I found out mom was moving me out of the house, I was ecstatic. She offered to wait until after my birthday to move. It's like, no, let's go now. Let's go now. We had my 13th birthday on boxes, and I was so happy because it was just my mom in the house, just us. I was sad we had to leave the cats, but we were the only ones in the house. My dad was gone. And so that ended, a lot of that interaction, but it was still running around and ping-ponging in the back of my head. I could not stop I could not stop myself from still being scared, still being confused. Roland, you have a comment up here. I'm so sorry. I didn't even see it. You're still on mute.
Yes, I know. It takes me a while to maneuver the mouse. Nathan Siegel had something to plant in there. As a kid, it's hard to get help. Often people simply don't listen or ignore what you have to say. It happened to me. It happens to everybody at some level. And one of the things that is really obvious to me now is that when back in the days when you were in your right around 13 or early teens or maybe even preteen, and everybody in the family, of course, we would discuss around you, not necessarily with you in the room, and we heard things about what you did and you were acting out, and we came to our own conclusions as we overviewed what we thought you were doing and what was going on. And all we saw was the acting out. All we saw was the results of your intentions after the fact. And of course, that's already too late. But the concept is that the parents and the surrounding adults formulate their own opinions, talk about it, form a stand, and try to unify on how we're going to shape you up or how we're going to help you straighten out and stuff when we don't even know what the problem is. And I think that is prevalent to the deepest extent. Sometimes, even if you're the direct parent, you don't know what's going on. So I think that we should be more aware of the fact that there are opportunities for mishaps to happen and for some horrible things to go on, and we do not know. So it means that we should be more vigilant about how we look at and how we conduct and how we treat and respect our own kids, and not just say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Get back in line. Shut up and straighten out, and you shouldn't be acting this way. Well, if they shouldn't be acting this way and this other stuff is happening to them, what kind of a message does that tell them? It boxes them in with the very same psychology that you just described, Jeanette. You start shaping your reality and making your judgments according to what you think the messages are coming from your own parents. So a lot of times we're trying to mold something that we don't even know what kind of clay we have in our hands. And it's like we don't know what's going on. Therefore, we are not qualified to shape that clay. And so it's an understanding thing, and we have to reach deeper.
That is true. And thank you, Roland.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, it doesn't, like, if the people you're supposed to go to for help are the problem, you really believe that there is no hope. Because if you tick off your parents, the whole family's mad at you, that they're disappointed, they're frustrated. And so it's always like, why are you doing this? Which just reinforces guilt. Guilt is the most prevalent feeling that most survivors have. Guilt that they somehow didn't stop it, guilt that they didn't speak out, guilt that they did not understand what was happening to them and on what level. So they'll take a lot of responsibility on themselves. And especially when people ask, why didn't you say something? It is a normal human thing to be like, why didn't you tell someone? And that it makes you inside just shrink in and in and in, and you feel worse and worse for not saying anything sooner. And that's a hard thing to get away from. For a lot of other people, like, I wish you had told me. And it's like, hell, I wish I had told everybody. I wish I had screamed it over and over again until someone came. And you don't know how to ask for help because you're not entirely sure that you deserve help. If you're punished, or you get told you can't go to a party, you get grounded, you're not really supposed to complain about that because it's something you did that caused that, the cause and effect. And, parents are always saying consequences for your actions. This is now what you get. And I did not know how to outright ask, what did I do to deserve this? So when I finally, like I said in the first broadcast, when my mom was at church, she dragged me there, and I felt like I did not have a right to be in that church. I felt like I was going to turn everything ugly. And she was talking to another lady there, just explaining how horrible child molesters are and how they're just disgusting and they need to be locked up. And I realized not only did she not know, and that meant that my mom didn't hate me and she didn't think I was horrible, at least not all the time. I was finally able to get out what I remembered. And when the police told my mom that while the investigation was ongoing, we were not supposed to have any contact with my dad, or I was not supposed to have any contact. And that it was very ambivalent. I felt relieved that I didn't have to face him, but I also missed him. And that was a very weird feeling. It was a very weird feeling that at times I would miss my dad, and that would make me wonder if it was real. Is it something that it didn't happen and I just, want my family again? Or is it something where it's just he's been around all my life? Am I supposed to miss him because he's been there for 13 years of my life? And the more people that tried to talk to me, I realized not only was it not fair, it was wrong what happened. And I became so furious. So furious that it happened at all, and all the questions that you're never going to get an answer to. Why me? Why him? Why did it go on for so long? Why didn't he say something? Why didn't someone see? Why did nobody save me? And I realized that if my family had known, if anyone had known, they would have stopped him. Even my little tiny grandmother would have stopped him. But you can't, it's really hard to break away from that feeling of how come no one saved me? And because as a kid, you're supposed to be saved. You're not supposed to have to save yourself, Your parents and your family are supposed to protect you from all this. And I was angry because it felt like not just a betrayal from him, okay, because he was the one who was supposed to protect me. I felt betrayed by my whole family, even though they didn't know. It's just like, well, a part of me felt like they should have known and they should have seen it, and I couldn't see it. And so it's this loop of why didn't anyone know? Why didn't I know? How come? And that's where they want you to stay. That's where the abusers want you to stay, because as long as you are so confused and so helpless, you will never speak up. And it used to be the thought that a repressed memory was just invented, fabricated. And now psychology realizes that your brain, if you've ever seen like a murder picture or anything really horrible, and all of a sudden it's like a jigsaw puzzle, because your brain's going, nope, that's horrible. You're not going to see it. You are just not going to make sense of this because it's awful. And so your brain will push it away. It's like, you're not dealing with this right now. You're just not, so that part just shuts down, locks it, and hides the key somewhere. And the sucky part is you don't get to choose when all of a sudden your brain goes, well, let's dust off this lid and see what's inside. And it usually is like a sound or someone saying a specific phrase or the way my body's positioned, where like I'll be curled up on the couch. And then I just remember being in different, like growing up, different couches, just rocking and rocking, because it's like, I don't want to think these things. They're horrible. This is my dad. I'm supposed to love my dad. I'm supposed to trust my dad. So even though you're furious with it, you feel so guilty, like maybe you're not living up to your part of the bargain. One of the things that made it very hard is I didn't realize at first that my grandfather was having a stroke. But, or not at the time, but during that period of time. And he had said certain things to try to get me to behave, but they came out very, very harsh. Like maybe if I'd been a model daughter, this wouldn't have happened. And he was trying to get me to behave correctly for my mom because I was giving my mom a lot of hard times. That devastated me because all of a sudden it's just like, this is my fault. If I was a good kid, this wouldn't have happened. Oh my God. Oh my God. I had just been uplifted realizing it wasn't my fault. And then someone I loved and trusted like smacked the hammer down. And I almost didn't know how to feel about that. You know, for a time, I didn't hate him. I was afraid to face him. I was afraid to talk to anybody for a while because I thought I asked for this by being a bad kid. And I realize now, it doesn't matter if I was running all over the place setting fire to stuff. That doesn't mean, hey, go molest your child. That'll teach him, you know. And that's not what he meant either. It's not what he meant. But, you know, even when my mom later in high school got her hysterectomy and it messed up, they had to do it twice, he had been worried about her and he had said, well, if she passes away, we all know who to blame. And again, he didn't mean he was going to blame me if my mom passed away. He was basically saying, you better fly right and not give the family any more trouble right now because your mom is sick. But what came out was just like, I'm going to get arrested if my mom passes. So, you wanted something to add, Roland?
Sorry, unmuting. This whole perspective of parenting and so forth, and the perspective of even a grandfather having the effect of something on you, it's a misconception and obviously warped perception going both ways. What the parent or the adult or the grandfather thinks and says versus your receiving of what he says and misinterpreting that. And so I wanted to add a lamination of the profile of our family is that we are known for basically coming from a point of honesty and love and so forth and caring. I mean, just as a family, that's where we come from. And your grandfather was a very, very high integrity person. And your mother is also. Your mother is a elementary school teacher and very well respected in her industry. And she's very high integrity. So for her to not know what you were going through until you were touching your teens and then suddenly realize that years later this happened. I mean, for us to be fooled in the inner circle of our family with such a horrific event and not know what's going on, that's the level of secrecy and, the shadows and the negativity that can be hidden is appalling. So you never know what's going on until you know. And sometimes we have to dig deeper, and sometimes we have to forget what we think or forget what we think we know because we are just way off base. So it's not a matter of being a bad person, but sometimes our perception does not allow us to see the truth. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that is true. And my family was, my mom's side of the family is so loving and very spiritual and very, very strong, very strong. And they wanted to help so bad, but they didn't know how to help. This was thrown in their midst and they were not prepared for this. And you know what? Bless them all. You shouldn't have to be prepared for something like this to happen in your family. You have an earthquake kit, you have flashlights, you have batteries. You don't have a just in case your child gets molested kit. And if you have one of those, that's kind of creepy. Okay, I will say that it's a little creepy, but it's in the back of your mind, like, just in case this happens, just in case, your car tire blows. You need to have an idea of how you can help your child. And my mom did everything that she could think of. Everything. She dragged me kicking and screaming to therapy. She dragged me to church. She would sit me down and keep telling me, you are good. And I would look at her like she was the craziest witch in the whole wide world, because there's a part of me thinking, you are tied to this, this event, these events. You are never going to be good, because what happened is evil and you were there. And pretty much everyone can agree that this kind of scenario is wrong, but I was there. And so it's very hard to separate yourself from the blame and responsibility of those scenarios, because usually in your head, you're kicking and screaming. In your head, you're fighting, you're crying, you're saying no, you're drifting away from the event. Very few times can you make your body act on that. So you just turn in on yourself. And she would, there's something called victim entitlement that I'm not the one to make it up, okay? But it's just kind of, any therapist will understand that. You feel like if you've gone through something, that the rules don't apply to you anymore, because you get a VIP pass because you've already suffered. And my mom held her ground, and she's like, this happened to you, it's horrible, but you still have to go to school, you still have to get up and shower, you still have to live, you still have to tell the truth, you still need to work at being a good person, you cannot stop living. And I fought her so much, because I said, what the hell is the point? What the hell is the point if I'm never going to be good, and this has already happened to me, and if people find out, they're not going to like me anymore, and they're going to think I'm weird. So we went round and round, and she kept trying to hammer on me, let me in, let me in. I didn't even know what was in there. So some days I'd be sweet and nice, and then, like flipping a switch, I'd be angry, I'd push everyone I loved away, all my friends, my family, and then I'd get really depressed, because then I was alone. So it was just this cycle. It was this cycle of just crap running through my head, where it's just like, it's not fair, I hate this, I hate you, I hate him, I hate everybody. And then it was just like, why am I alone? I don't want to be alone, because then I'm left alone with my own thoughts, and this is crazy, and it feels horrible. And then someone else would show up, it's like, are you okay? And like a crazy person, I just flip, and it's like, what do you care? You didn't care 3 years ago, why do you care now? Now that everyone realizes there's something wrong with Trinette, now we're all going to jump on the bandwagon of, hey, let's fix her, let's love bomb her sorry ass until she gets better. And then when that didn't work, it's like, well, you're kind of being a jerk to your mom. And it's like, that's right, it's just about her. And so anyone who tried to talk to me wound up in this minefield that no matter what way they tried to get in, they couldn't win. They couldn't win, because at that point, I did not trust hardly any grown-ups, hardly any. And the only few that I trusted, I hardly saw. I saw my uncle down in LA every once in a while. And once in a while, my aunt and I would have a really, really good connection. And my mom never gave up on me, even when I was a jerk at one point, and I was so angry with her. I said, I want to go live with my dad. And to her credit, she took it like a champ. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. I realized to tell my mother I'd rather go live with a pedophile than put up with your logical rules and your loving guidance. That was my way of hurting her as hard as I could. And she just looked at me and she goes, well, you can't, because the police won't let you talk to him, and you still need to do the right thing. She never let on how much that hurt her inside. And I tried to make her hate me. A part of me wanted people to see how ugly it was in here. Because as long as people kept saying, you're good, you're lovable, you're funny, I'm just like, you guys are so stupid. You have no idea what I get up with every morning, staring me in the face like some veil I can't clear. I couldn't shake it. And I wanted friends so badly in high school that I began splitting. I'd have several different kinds of friends, and most of them couldn't stand each other because it's high school and people are jerks. And so I would be one way with some friends, one way with another friend, and then it got really awkward when they all got together because I wasn't quite sure where my loyalties lay. And I began lying a lot. And it got to a point later that I couldn't keep track of what my lies were. And some of them were little, and some of them were serious. And it got to the point that my family couldn't trust me. I was taking my mom's clothes and cutting them up. I was burying her jewelry. I was taking money out of her purse, and it was just like $5, $10, $20 at a time. And I just I was trying to hurt people. I was trying so hard because I would be this almost desperate, frantic, happy, bubbly person. And sometimes it was an act and sometimes it wasn't. And then when I'd get really down, people were like, well, what's wrong? You're always so happy. So I would just ramp up again. It's like, okay, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be goofy. I'm going to be this. It's just like smoke screening. Because the few times I try to talk to people at school, kids are asses, okay? And I realized I was an insufferable jerk through most of it. And I put my friends and family through it, but I try to start talking. And unfortunately, there's a type of mentality in some high school boys' minds. They're like, okay, so you've already done this, so what's the big deal about sex? Well, okay, that doesn't mean that now it's free range on Trinette, but I had issues with boundaries where I'd be fine with my friends and then one guy would tickle me. And instead of saying, no, don't do that, I don't like it, it freaks me out. If you do that in high school, everyone just makes fun of you and teases you and ignores you, okay? They push boundaries. So my response was to go and find an Alhambra water bottle that was empty and kneecap this guy. Again, totally unrational response to something, but I realized that I needed to make sure that the kids realized I wasn't bluffing. And I lost some friends that way, and some people still stayed around because when I wasn't going crazy, I was actually, I guess, a lot of fun to be around. But I wanted my guy friends, but I didn't want to date them. I didn't want to kiss them. I didn't want to hold them because anytime someone would try to do that around me, I became overwhelmed with anxiety. It was not a normal reaction. In high school, your hormones are running rampant. And every time someone would express interest in me in a relationship way, I would just think, you're ruining everything. You're my friend, and now you want to do this with me, and it's going to break because all high school relationships break, and then we're not going to be friends, and people are going to split up and go separate ways, and you're ruining everything. A boy in 7th grade told me, I like you. This was through middle school in 7th grade. And my response was to turn around and kick him straight in the balls. And again, not a good way of handling it. And then later on, he's just like, why do you keep punching me? Why do you keep hitting me? I'm just saying I like you. I'm like, I don't know. You're messing with things. We're friends and it's fine. We don't need to be anything but friends. And yeah, guys will be your friend, but if they really like you, they kind of want to be more than just your friend. It's a normal reaction. And I hated that. I did not want any closer interaction with men. To a point that most of my guy friends were afraid to ask me out ever. And I thought there was something wrong with me. It's like, why don't I want to date? Why don't I want to kiss boys? Why don't I want to cuddle with them at a movie theater? And yet, at the same point, I was one of the few people not putting out at that point in high school. So the rumor then spread, oh, she must be gay. And okay, I don't have a problem with people who are, homosexual, bisexual, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the thing is that I wasn't. And it's like, so in order to prove I'm not gay, I have to go sleep with a boy? The high school boys are weird. They'll like lamprey onto your mouth and just like drool on your face. And it's nothing like how I dreamed that an interaction with a guy should be. And they're awkward and you're awkward and you don't really know what you're doing. And anytime someone was nice to me in a way that raised those endorphins, I ran. I ran because then all this feeling of fear and pain and anger would start surfacing. And I thought, why would you want to do that to me? That hurts, that makes me feel dirty, that makes me feel gross and wrong. Why would you want to do that with me? And the thing is that is a normal human reaction to want to have carnal knowledge of somebody, okay? But my introduction to it was so violent and wrong and from totally the wrong corner of the field, that I looked at sex as dirty. I looked at people kissing and hugging and wanting to hang out and make out. That was all wrong and dirty. And even though I saw my other friends pairing off, I'm just like, why don't I want that? What is wrong with me? Am I gay? You know, am I asexual? Am I just, you know, what's wrong with me? And no one had any answer. You know, at one point I tried to, my mom was taking 22 units that year. It was senior year. And I kept saying, Mom, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And she tried to shut her bedroom door on me. And I shoved my foot in the door and I shut it open. I almost knocked her down. And I was screaming at her. I was just screaming at her that I needed to talk to her because I had all this dark swirling in my head. And I felt like I was free falling, like I was losing control. I didn't know what was real anymore. And I actually pushed my mom into a mental breakdown in the corner of the hallway. And she first said, call Mom and Dad, meaning her parents. And then she starts bawling, saying, no, they'll hate you. They'll hate you. And I was so scared. I had never seen my mom crumble. I tried to call them anyway, and they must have been out helping someone else. And of all the people I could think of to call was my dad. So I called my dad to come over because I didn't know who else to talk to and who else to help her. And they'd already separated. So I called him over, and she was saying that I was always doing this to her when she had a test. And he pointed out, you have 22 units. You always have a test. You always do. So I felt, and then she would be like, what do you want to talk about? What is it? I'm here. I dropped everything. What is it? And I just look at her going, I don't know. I just want to talk. So she had this little rage ball of a teenager that would basically like rend all of her plans asunder. And then it's like, okay, you have my full attention. What? And it's like, I don't know. Why don't you leave me alone? Why are you hassling me? You know? So she's like, I'm doing everything you're asking for. Why? I didn't know how to get this out. I felt this rising, like when you feel like you're going to throw up or you're going to pass out. And it was terrifying. And I didn't want to be alone for it, but I didn't know how to open the floodgates. I did not know how to handle it because I still felt no matter what, I was bad. I was wrong. There is no word to describe, you know, irretrievable. That I could not be redeemed in any sense of the fashion. And it pissed me off. It pissed me off that in 8th grade, they were talking about abstinence. And I was trying to ask in a roundabout way, well, what if you were younger? What if you didn't know what was happening? And the girl was like, it doesn't matter. You're not a virgin anymore. That killed me. That killed me. That meant even if, from her point of view, that it didn't matter why it happened or who did it to me, that I wasn't a virgin. Then it's like, who the hell is going to want me now? You know, who? Some idiot in high school when I started talking to my friends was just like, well, did you like any of it? You know? And it's like, what kind of a sick thing is that to say? You're focusing on that. Did I like any of it? You know, are you serious? Or one guy, when I tried to explain, no, it's this and this and this, and the guy said, okay, so you bleeped your dad. I'm not going to say that word right now. So when people, that's their takeaway from what you're trying to say, you don't want to talk anymore. You do not want to, who wants to be thought of as that, you know? That's putting the blame on them, putting the responsibility on them. It's like, okay, if you're going to identify me as I'm the one who does that with her dad or did that with her dad, I don't want to talk to anybody ever again if that's how you see me. You know, and the thing is, unfortunately, certain people, if you talk about that, they think, well, you've already done it, so what's the big deal about having sex with other people? Like I had no right to hold on to that I still had a choice. And I was about 17, 18, and I was kind of seeing this guy, and he was a horrible kisser. And he opened his pants, and I saw it, and my reaction was just automatic. It's like, okay, jerked him off. I didn't even think about it. I didn't dislike him. I didn't really, really like him. That was just my reaction. It's a penis. You're supposed to take care of it. And afterwards, I'm wondering, why am I doing this? I don't like him that much. I don't want to have sex with him. Why am I? So when it would actually be presented to me, I would do these things. And I'm not blaming him. It's not like he forced it on me. It was just like, you know, hey, opportunity might arise. And he wasn't going to turn me down. And he didn't know what was going on in my head. And I reacted to it. When sex was presented, I reacted to it because I thought it's already happened. So who am I to say, is like, am I going to try to pretend I'm a good girl now? Because I didn't feel like a good girl, so it felt like I was just purporting a lie. Even when I was trying to be as tomboy as possible, I still wanted to wear makeup, but I'd wear like 80s bomber jackets, and I would wear these sunglasses that made nobody look cool, like aviators. No girl looks cool in aviators, but I was just trying to look as masculine as possible. And I was mad because guys still saw me as pretty. And it's like, don't look at me as pretty. Then you're going to want to talk to me and sleep with me and kiss me. And I don't want to hate anyone like that. And this was the 90s. They were trying to make me take Prozac and Paxil. Let's medicate everybody. And the psychiatrist kept saying, I want you to take this because you're depressed. I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm pissed. I am pissed. And this pill is not going to fix me being pissed. And it's not going to change what's in my head. And it won't help me. And, he kept pushing it until I finally said I would take it. And then I never took it because it's like, I don't want to end my life. I want to hurt people. I want to hurt everyone. I just want someone to share my hell with me for 1 second and see me and realize that maybe if I'm broken, I'm still worth putting back together. No pill's going to do that for you. That's.
So I'd like to interject right here. The underlying message that should be in the foreground with this is that the child's message is near impossible to divulge. I mean, they've got psychological blocks, and they've got things that they think that they've learned from the adults and the parents that mold their thinking, so that they find it impossible to say. Like, how could you tell your mom what was the problem when your dad was right there? I mean, that's an impossible situation. And yet they're looking at you like, well, tell me what's going on. And you were caught completely in a catch-22 where you could not say what you're going to say. So a lot of times it's got to be one parent who is sincerely trying to help to figure out how to help the child. And how to help is the big question. And one thing that I wanted to remind is that the people that you seek for help, it's obviously that you are so close to the situation as the one parent, recognizing that there is a deeper problem, that you're not really in a position to solve it. So you need a neutral party to come in, not a relative, not someone not someone connected to the family in any way. Find a neutral party. And then there are ways to find that neutral party and someone you can trust. And you could probably ask Trinette, and she could probably direct you to ways you can find that neutral party who is qualified to help. And so that's another thing. And the last thing, if I could take another minute, is that
sure.
So much of the time people look at a situation in the aftermath and they say, well, you got to forgive and forget. You've got to let it go. You have to be stronger. You have to walk away. You have to you have to move on. Well, how do you move on from something like this? I mean, it's really a process that takes some intricate processing. And so we can't expect our loved ones, if we actually discover that there's been an issue, we can't expect it to be an easy move-on situation. We have to exercise some patience, love, and understanding, and help them process. And I think that's what your husband has done for you. Stephen's been great, and you guys are still there. And yet, in the midst of this, you still have repercussions from time to time. And those things are survivable, but it starts off with you've got to love each other, and you have to respect each other, and you have to be willing to go through this together. So there's a lot to be said for your hubby in the process, and I hand a lot of kudos Stephen's way for being the man that he is.
Definitely.
So even if your family members and intentionally you want to do really well to help, we have to understand that forgiving and forgetting and moving on is not as easy as the words make it sound.
Definitely not. Definitely, because one thing I've learned, unfortunately, is that you hurt the people you trust not to leave. So in a lot of ways, that was my mom. And my husband, it was someone that I knew would take it to a point and not leave me. And there were times I would be mad that they wouldn't leave me and they wouldn't hate me. And then I was also terrified that they would. I met my husband online when we were 13 in a Sierra chat room. And actually, I got attracted to him because he had perfect grammar. And I loved that time talking with him online because I could pretend to be a good, clean, wholesome person. And we didn't really flirt in the traditional sense. We talked, and it was a wonderful time because we were both intelligent for our age. And when he tried to come out when I was 19, I was so angry because I thought, my house of cards is going to fall down. You're going to see me for who I am, and I can't keep up this facade. And my first response was I tried to talk and talk and talk, and then I thought, okay, well, what do guys want? So I slept with him and then left him in the hotel room. That's not what he wanted. Well, it is, but that's not the end-all be-all what he wanted. And the thing he remembers me telling him the second time he came out, I didn't pick him up from the train station or the bus station, and I let him find his way to his hotel, and I showed up, and I told him, I said, I can't be with you because you make me happy. And I meant it because I thought, you are so good and so nice, and I'm going to drag you down with me. And I don't want to do that to you. And I didn't have the courage to tell him this. It's like, I can't stand the idea of someone as nice as you leaving me because I don't think I could survive it. So I left him before he had a chance to leave me because that hurt less, because at least it was ending it on my terms. And I would act out with certain friends, and it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to lose this person, it's going to be because it's something I knowingly did. And then it's not going to hurt as much as you've ever been dumped or someone won't talk to you more, and you're like, why? At least this way I would know why. It's like, because I was a jackass. That's easier to handle because at least it was my on purpose feeling. And that was just, that's how I would handle people. When they get too close, I'd push them away. I would try to be as horrible as possible. And sometimes they would leave and never come back. And sometimes they were kind of as broken and cracked as I was. I hung out with the misfits, most of them. And looking back now, very few of them had a good home life. So when I would go nuts, they would understand. They accepted me for being weird. They accepted me for being unorthodox because they knew what it was like in the head to be like, why do I not matter? And it's not like anyone told me I didn't matter. It's that if certain situations in your life when you're growing up show you that you are devalued, that's a hard one to shake. That is a very hard one to shake. And it's just like, so they got it. They got me. We're all there, and before Hot Topic was cool, the dyed pants and the stapled jeans and, the black eyeliner and everything. And of course we just looked like some kind of, the craft rejects. But they accepted me, and they didn't expect me to be a certain way. They didn't expect me always to smile. And I needed that. I needed that a lot because my family was trying to help me be healthy, and none of us knew what was going on. None of us, I could not break that barrier. So I was just, it's like I was spinning like a Tasmanian devil into the ground, and no one knew how to throw me a rope. They wanted to, but no one knew how. And I didn't know how to ask for it because I didn't know what was going on in my head. So it's like, how do I ask if I don't know what questions to ask? It's like, help me. Help you with what? I don't know. I'm just angry. I want to kill things. I screwed through all of junior year, and I actually didn't pass a single class. And from 8th grade on, my grades faltered horribly. I could ace every test, but I just could not sustain the studying. I was just losing it. And so in senior year, I went up, I took 9-day classes and 2 night classes at a college at night. And I was going up 2 grade levels, a grade level every semester. And I had a 4.32 the first semester. And I was insane. I had no free time. My friends didn't know I wasn't talking to them. And then half the days I would wear regular high school clothes, and the other half of the time I would wear a silk shirt, satin vest, a tie, slacks, low-heeled shoes, a briefcase. I mean, it was just so night and day. I was putting Celtic designs on my face, and the school thought that I was like some kind of Satanist. And I was spinning as tight as I could, trying to hold it together. And then my mom got her hysterectomy. And I had got a 91 out of 99 on the ASVAB. I was going to join the Army. I was going to be a linguist. I aced the D-Lab test. I had it. For a second, I had it. But then when she got sick, I don't know where I was. I probably freaked out. And I wasn't there that night. And Mom had to call my dad to sleep on the couch the first night after her surgery to help her in case she needed help. And that terrified me. When I found out, it's like I do not want him nosing back into our lives. I don't want him helping her. I don't want him touching her. I don't want him anywhere near my mother. And I was afraid that if I left to go to the Army, that I'd come back and he was back home. I knew she didn't want him around anymore, but I was afraid he was going to wear her down because she needed help. My grandfather had a stroke. My brother was doing his own thing. My aunt was doing her own thing. And I just didn't know what to do, so I quit school. I quit school, and I lost the ability to graduate. I didn't know what. I was afraid. I was afraid that my family was going to blame my mom for not recovering, and I was afraid that my dad was going to come back and live in our house. And I ended up not graduating, so I couldn't go into the Army, and that pissed me off because I really thought that if I joined the military, they'd show me how to kill my dad. I wanted a way to end it all, and I wanted to know that I never had to be afraid of him again. So that was hard. That was hard because everyone's like, you had it fine, you were great, you were a model student, and then you dumped it, you know? And it's like, I did it to help my mom, you know? I did it to help her, and now you guys are saying I screwed up. So either I could be really selfish and say screw everyone, or I can help my mom, you know? So that was a hard point because everything I tried to do, I had a reason, and it seemed like everywhere I turned was the wrong way to go. And that's because no one knew the whole story. Nobody did. And bottom line is that, yeah, it looked crazy from an outsider looking in. It wasn't crazy. I was screaming for help, but I didn't know how to get help. I was wanting to talk to the therapist, but I didn't know what I wanted to talk to them about. I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted it all to go away. I wanted it to have never happened. And the sad part is you don't get that wish. You don't get that wish for it to never happen. You're stuck with it. Not you're stuck in that moment, but you are stuck with dealing with it, and your family's stuck with it. And that's not something you can run away from that easily. You know, not forever.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you, Jeanette, to be able to speak through this in an hour segment and tell your story and rehash this and to convey some helpful information to families, because the more we become aware of what you went through, the more we become aware of what's happening around us in our own families and in adjacent families, in neighbors, friends, associates. And the concept of a teen acting out is taking on a completely different shape in my mind. And I look at my own 3 daughters and I think, I don't think I ever really had to deal with anything like that. I mean, the fear that I would have in retrospect is like, what was happening around my daughters when I wasn't there? What was happening to them anyway? In spite of the fact that I might have certain principles and thoughts myself as a father, I'm not the only adult around them. So there were uncles, there were stepfathers, there were people involved that I cannot vouch for. I mean, not really. You know, I know what I'm thinking, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what everybody's doing. So it just stands to reason that we have to be careful about what's going on and give more attention to what we should be in thinking outside the box, because we don't know what's going on. And that's part of the message that I derive today, is that we don't know. We don't know. And so we've got to keep a more open mind and be less judgmental as parents, and more aware when we see something red flag waving in on the horizon with our kids, we have to pay attention to that and not say, "What the hell is wrong with you?" but like more like, "What's going on with you?" So it's a completely different attitude that we can take, and we must approach these concepts with love and make that first and foremost the message to our kids so that they feel like they can tell us, because obviously if something's going on, chances are they can't tell us. So we have to open the door for them and let them feel safe to talk to us and convey the message before we can actually get the story out, find out what's going on, and then start to make amends.
I know we're hitting close to the time, but I just noticed that there, Crystal was commenting on a different page, and I do want to answer her. Okay, so even though we're going to go over the time limit, I don't care.
Sure.
Chris, first of all, I love you so much. I love you. We went through some of our crazy times together, and neither one of us knew that we were going that way. You asked, is there any way to feel better? Telling the people around me so that they knew why I was triggering, that my husband knew why I would just flip and lash out, and that my mom understood why I was doing these things. This has helped. I cannot stress the help of therapy. I cannot stress it, because sometimes I'm able to admit things to my therapist that are not good about me. And I need to face that. I need to face that I have some dark thoughts. I have some weird thoughts. I have some hopeless thoughts. And to say it out loud, it's not in you. It's not in you putting its little hooks and claws and ripping you apart inside, and you're just trying to put on a happy face. That has made it possible for me to look and be like, okay, I'm messed up, but I'm realizing where this led, why all these things that when I was a child led to all my decisions now. And I know there were times in high school that you pushed me away. I know it. You made it very clear. One day we were great. Next day I was public enemy number one. And I tell you right now, as a survivor, sometimes you do the most jacked up things to your friends where you test them. All of a sudden you feel guilty for trusting someone, because a part of you is just like, you don't really think this person cares about you, right? Because we've gone down that road before, and look where it led you. Now you're hurt. Now I have to pick you up again. Good job. So you start throwing out obstacles that nobody can accomplish. And that part of you that hates yourself and doesn't want you to be happy, it's like, see, they're not really good friends. They don't really care about you. You catch them in a tiny bit of a lie, like 6:37 instead of 6:30 when they came home. And then that proves to you, it's like, okay, I'm still on top of things. I'm on guard. You can't pull the wool over my eyes, And it's hard, because it's like, okay, well, am I establishing boundaries, or am I being absolutely nuts and making people jump through hoops that they shouldn't have to? And I've noticed that a lot of the people that I should have done this to, I didn't. And the people that would take it are the ones that I just ran roughshod all over because I knew they would. I knew they'd allow it. And so it's like a reverse. Instead of telling the jerks to go off and pound sand, I was doing this to the nice people. And I think in high school, I was one of the nicer people that you knew, Chris. And you knew I wouldn't really retaliate because I cared about you. And I knew what it was like to hurt and feel like you're stuck in this tiny little Pokemon ball of pain. And that to complain about it is to be a wimp. Oh, Roland has something for us.
Yes, a new friend of mine that I met recently, Julie Sager Nierenberg, says, "Move on is not constructive advice. No one can move on from oneself. We go with ourselves wherever we go." Such good stuff you are sharing here, Trinette. And so they says she admires you. And she adds, devaluing situations, ones that take away our dignity and choice, are the hardest ones to grieve and integrate. So I just wanted to add her statement. Thank you very much for joining us, Julie. I appreciate you supporting the concept and your contribution. Thank you very much. So we're right at the 10:30 mark, and
Yeah.
Perhaps
I
there's any kind of a wrap up relative to the concept of school or middle school or high school or just kids and their teens in general.
I think everyone can agree that high school is pretty freaking unbearable, and the last thing you want is a glaring difference between you and the other kids. But being there for your kid and making them realize that at that point, kids are just, they're jerks. Okay, they're jerks. They don't know how to handle it. It is a very grown up situation, and a lot of your friends aren't going to be able to handle it with you. They're just not. They're not equipped to. You know, you're still children. You're teenagers, but you're a child with a grown-up burden, and that's a time where you are so helpless that you will act out. And it's like, well, if I'm bad inside, then I might as well enjoy being bad. You know, I'm going to go out and smoke, cigarettes. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And that is a time where basically, and it sounds so cliched, you're screaming for help. You are screaming, and you don't even know that you're screaming. And all your family can look at is, this kid's being an ungrateful jerk. I don't have an answer except for, trying to get your kid into some kind of a place, a safe spot where they can talk to someone that's not in the family. There has to be an outlet. There has to be a safe, positive outlet for them. Otherwise, they're going to self-medicate. They're going to find sex. They're going to find drugs. They're going to find cigarettes. They're going to find alcohol. They're going to find all these things. So just for 1 minute, they can forget that in their minds, they're no good. And my mom did a good job of, even though I didn't want to listen, telling me I was good, telling me I was worth something, that I was wonderful. And I pushed it away. And your kids are going to push you away too. They're just going to. I'm just saying, do not give up. Because the one thing I remember is, as much as I thought my mom was an idiot for telling me I was worth something, it stuck in my head. And I'm never going to forget that she didn't give up. This is the point up until I was 18. Next time it's going to be a more difficult discussion, talking about what I did after high school. And it was not a lot of things I'm proud of. But it's something that I want to talk about, not to get attention, but because so many people did kind of what I did. And for the record, right before I go off, I want to say, Dad, I realize you're watching this, okay? And or if not now, later. And I know that your just stance is that I'm lying, I'm looking for attention, I'm trying to destroy you. I just want to say that you're a freak for watching this, and I don't appreciate it, because you and your actions put me on this where I had to find the road to recovery. And I'm not going to forbid you from watching it, because it's a free country and you're free to be a creep over in your own place. But I think it's sick. I just want to tell you right now that it's sick. So, Mom, Stephen, I love you. I love you for all the hours that you spent with me, Roland, for the hours you've listened to me regurgitate all these feelings. And I'll talk to all of you in about a week, okay?
And I just wanted to add on the tail end of that, I appreciate people watching. I realize that there are people who didn't actually RSVP or check in and say yes or maybe, who are probably watching the program. It doesn't bother us in the least, because it's hard to attach yourself to this and show the world that you're watching because of the oddness of the subject in general. But watch for sure, learn for sure, adjust our thinking as a community around this subject, and then we have done our job. So thank you very much for attending and for joining us in thought. So I'll let you wrap it up, Trinette.
Okay, that was kind of my wrap up. If anyone wants to say anything in private or to question, I am on Google Plus. I do have a Facebook. Not many people are named Trinette Hackett. Okay, and I will not always be online, but I will try to answer each and every one of you. And I've done it in the past. And I appreciate people for tuning in and for commenting and for realizing that. Bottom line is, this isn't about me. I'm just trying to share a story so that maybe someone out there realizes they're not crazy, and that there is a funky, broken path sometimes, but it's there and you deserve it. And These episodes are just me taking my life back and realizing I can live my life for me, not for him, not for anybody else, just me. So we're gonna end this right here, and I'll see y'all guys in a week. Bye.